So I was working on crafting an intro to today's show, which is a show about a newly prohibited item on a cruise ship. And I wanted to start the show off with some sort of quirky joke like, this isn't usually accepted, like, taking your mom to prom or something like that. And so I Googled the question and I got a surprising answer. Let me share this with you. I Googled, is it acceptable to date your cousin? And I thought the answer would just be no. Well, the first answer at the top of the Google results, while there's sometimes stigma associated with dating within families, anyone can date their first cousin. However, the questions around legality and morality come into play when you start discussing a future, including marriage or having children with your partner. Anyone. And then if you look at the bottom, I guess a lot of people have typed in this follow-up question. Is it okay to date your non-blood cousin? And the answer, the reason it is typically taboo is because of the risk of having genetic problems or children born in the marriage. Since you two are not blood related, that would not be a problem. Just make sure your families are okay with it. And that brings us around the full circle. The prohibited item it has to do with families, I think. A newly prohibited item on your next cruise. Don't date your cousin unless the families are okay with it. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I am your host, Tony, here to talk you through everything going on in cruising. And well, today there was a topic that caught my attention about how the prohibited item list is ever changing on cruise lines. And there was an interesting article on Cruise Hive today saying that Norwegian Cruise Line has quietly snuck in another item on their prohibited list. And it reminded me of something, the craziest thing that I've heard of ever being prohibited. I will share with you at the end of this story. Before I tell you what the Norwegian new prohibited item is, let me just go over some that I know for sure are prohibited. Most cruise lines, blanket statement here, most cruise lines will not allow you to bring an iron on board. This is something that still continues to shock first-time cruisers. You're packing your clothes into a suitcase. You know those clothes are going to be wrinkled. You found out that there's no irons available in your cruise cabin. You think, well, maybe I should bring my own iron. Do not do that. It will be confiscated. Many cruise lines have what's called a laundrette, a little laundry room. That a lot of times there are multiple of them on the cruise ship, and most of them include an ironing station with an ironing board and an iron. However, if your cruise ship does not provide a laundrette or a way for you to press your own clothes, certainly the cruise lines will press your clothes for you at a fee. Many times there is a discount to get your clothes pressed on the very first day. And so make sure you check into all of that. Another thing that I've seen people want to bring on a cruise ship that just will not work on most cruise ships are video game systems. I've seen several posts like, oh, my kid would like to bring the PS5 so they could play video games during the cruise. I've got somebody who watches the Apple TV all the time. Can I hook a streaming device up to the TV? For the most part, those are, maybe they're not prohibited. You could probably get them on board, but they're not going to work. There's not going to be a way to, plug them in. A big one for a lot of people these days because of the availability of this technology item, drones. And make sure if you're cruising on your next cruise to check your cruise line policy on drones. Some cruise lines will say no drones at all. If they find it in your bag, they'll confiscate it. Some cruise lines say you can bring a drone on board, but you can't use it on board. You can use it in port. So drones are one of those things. And well, an interesting one that's just been added to Norwegian Cruise Line's list. This one, I put two pictures on the thumbnail. Is it snorkels or is it walkie-talkies? What do you think? Snorkels or walkie? It's walkie-talkies. They've added walkie-talkies to the prohibited list. There's some speculation as to why that is. The first speculation is walkie-talkie abuse. rambunctious youth running around with the walkie-talkies, being loud with the walkie-talkies, throwing the walkie-talkies. Those things have been documented on cruise ships, and so maybe one of the reasons why they are discontinuing the allowance of walkie-talkies on board is to cut down on that. And then, of course, the other one may have something to do with profitability. If you cannot bring a walkie-talkie on board, then maybe you would have to use the cruise line's own messaging system, which usually comes with a cost associated with it. I think there was one time that we contemplated taking walkie-talkies on board. I think there was one road trip in life where we took walkie-talkies so that we could communicate between the cars. But for the most part, on my family trips, we never really used walkie-talkies. And if I could squirrel off here for a second, there's an item that I've heard that people are bringing onto Carnival cruise ships that maybe should be prohibited, but I've heard of people going to the dollar store and picking up cafeteria trays, because Carnival, they used to provide trays at the buffet so that you could arrange your plates on the buffet and walk it back to the table. Well, they don't do that anymore. And the reason they don't do that anymore is because they're environmentally conscious, and it's, it takes a lot of effort and resources and water, all that kind of stuff to wash all of those trays. And so it's not a good environmental look. And so now they don't do that. And so if you want to take multiple plates to your table, you've got to have skills like a waiter, where you can carry a bunch of plates at once, or I'll have to demonstrate that. I think the most plates I've ever carried at one time, full dinner plates, could be between 6 and 8. Again, it was in the 90s, so I don't know. I was a much younger man, but I should try that at home. I should see how many plates I could carry. But anyways, you're either going to have to carry plates like a waiter on the Carnival buffet adventure, or you're going to have to make one trip at a time, or you're going to have to go to Dollar Tree and buy yourself a cafeteria tray and pack it in your suitcase. And they do still have trays on Carnival Cruise Line cruise ships, but the trays are used primarily for room service. And let me show you this picture, because this catches the uninitiated to Carnival off guard. This is the preferred way for getting rid of your room service dishes on a Carnival cruise ship. They don't want you to leave them in the cabin. They have a separate team that picks up these dishes. It's not the responsibility of your cabin steward. So sometimes people aren't into this because that means there's like food trays in the hall, but this is exactly what they would like you to do on Carnival. So again, just share that in case you don't know. But yeah, there's trays on Carnival, but they're not used for the buffet. They're used for the room service. How about that? I mean, let's face it, at the end of the day, it's not that shocking that walkie-talkies are prohibited. There's another item that's certainly not shocking that it's prohibited. I was just shocked that somebody got upset about it. I'm going to tell you what that is, but first let me invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. We just crossed 226,000 subscribers. Thanks everybody for subscribing. The subscribe button is just down here. You can click it. It doesn't cost anything. We got the goal. We're trying to get to 250,000 subscribers. Could you please help us make that number? Be a part of the Loca fam. A big thank you in advance. All right, so what's the craziest thing that you feel like somebody might have gotten upset over for not being able to bring on board? How about this? A robot vacuum cleaner, a Roomba. Somebody wanted to bring their robot vacuum cleaner into their cabin so that while they were out enjoying the cruise ship, that the robot would vacuum their cabin. And of course they were told, no, you cannot bring your vacuum on board. Have you ever had anything confiscated when you were boarding the cruise ship or even after your cruise began? I would love to hear that story in the comments below. And did you enjoy the show today? You can show your support for the show by hitting the like button, clicking it as it were. And unfortunately, if you do not hit the like button or click it as it were, I will be forced to punish you, and your punishment will be this. You will be gifted a 23andMe DNA test so that you can trace your ancestry. You will send your spittle into the lab. They will analyze your DNA. They will give you the results, and you will find out in a extraordinary fashion that you're actually married to your first cousin. And we're talking about a blood-related first cousin. But look, it's okay as long as your family's cool with it and, you genetics. Yeah, there ain't no loving like loving your cousin. That's what I heard. Look, you can avoid the cousin loving by hitting the like button. I did do a somewhat comprehensive list of things that are prohibited on a cruise ship. You might want to check that video out next. It's Tony for La Lido Loca, and until the next time, I'll see you on the Lido. Bye.